Federal officials announced charges this week against 8 people accused of defrauding taxpayers of more than $1.3 million through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Among those arrested was a Minneapolis man alleged to have stolen more than $1.1 million in benefits. Joining us to discuss the story with more detail is Elise Apel, reporter for the Center Square. Elise, thanks for taking time with us. You know, this is just 8 people. It's millions of dollars, but this is a pretty significant issue that the Trump administration seems to be tackling head on. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so it was $1.1 million that just the Minnesota man stole. So millions overall, I think 1.3 million overall. So actually kind of small in the grand scheme of, fraud across the United States, but it does serve as a significant step and just shows that the Trump administration is really trying to tackle this fraud and actually charge people, actually send people to jail for stealing all of this money. In this instance, the U.S. Department of Agriculture was the ones that announced the charges. They labeled it part of their Takedown Tuesday effort. And Secretary Brooke Rollins said, "Steal from SNAP, get busted." And so these 8 people were busted, and hopefully it's the first step of many towards a lot of these people going to jail that defrauded taxpayers of millions and billions of dollars.
And a lot of money involved here with the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and states are the ones that are facilitating these payments.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see how they address some of these states with, for instance, high error rates. But what's fascinating here, Elise, is, of course, the big dollar, $1.1 million from one man being alleged to have defrauded the taxpayer subsidized food program. But you've got charges, and we're looking at a list here that's pulled up that range from $50,000 to $25,000. But there's a few in there that are $1,000 or $2,000.
More than $1,000, right?
What does this indicate? Yeah, what does this indicate for the range of which the Trump administration is going after those who do defraud? It's no longer just seems to be big money. Fraudsters that are being alleged here. I mean, when somebody's charged in New York for $1,000 of defrauding SNAP, that signals a new kind of enforcement regime.
For sure, and I think in past instances we've seen maybe someone will be charged if it's millions and millions of dollars, or just blatant. We're providing hundreds of meals per week for school children that 0 meals were being provided. But this really is a significant, shift. They're going after, maybe your neighbor down the street that didn't fill out the paperwork, or incorrectly filled out paperwork, or fraudulently, in this case, fraudulently filled out paperwork for $1,000 of SNAP benefits. So I think that could really have real impacts on Americans, across the nation. That are defrauding the taxpayer, even in small amounts. I think the administration is really signaling, yes, we're going to go after the really big people. Like just last week, they also announced the first arrest. The FBI has launched this most wanted fraudsters list, and they announced their first big arrest in that case. So we're going after these people that have stolen millions and millions and millions of dollars, but we're also going to be looking at the smaller amounts that maybe other people haven't taken seriously before.
Now, how much fraud altogether is estimated out there across all these social safety net programs? I
mean, the question is, who knows, right? And that's the real issue, is even just in Minnesota, they estimate anywhere between $9 and $20 billion, billion with a B, $1 billion of fraud just in one state.
That's just one state.
And that's just one state, but
that's
also
remarkable.
That's a massive range of estimates, right? And so really the crazy thing about this is they really don't know how much fraud is out there. Even the government officials, they really don't know how much fraud is out there. And I think the other interesting thing, and I'll kind of pull in a story that I'm currently working on and readers should be able to read next week, is that a lot of these kind of state level attorney general's offices aren't actually charging these fraudsters. They're waiting on the U.S. attorney generals to come in and charge these fraudsters. So just this, I'm working on a case currently that the Minnesota Attorney General's office announced, yes, we're going to try to get back $2 million in fines from this person who fraudulently, put in these claims, but there are no criminal charges. So I think that'll be another interesting thing to look at as this kind of moves forward.
And I don't think it's prohibited that they can't do federal and state charges against somebody. So that very much is something that could happen, and maybe people see that as a signal of sorts of the amount of clamping down on this that there could possibly be. But what's next here? Is this just the beginning of what the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the FBI under the Trump administration are doing about this fraudulent money?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the USDA saying there is more to come. And this is what we're hearing. We're hearing this from the FBI. We're hearing this just across the board from the Trump administration, largely from Republican lawmakers as well, that this is just the first. They're going to continue looking into this fraud. They're going to be continuing pushing for accountability and continue to, receive or retrieve the taxpayer funds back that have been fraudulently stolen for, in some cases, years upon years or even decades.
Elise, greatly appreciate your reporting on this, and people can get the latest at thecentersquare.com. Thanks again to Elise for connecting on this very important story. Now, as the Trump administration continues to work at holding alleged fraudsters accountable, the issue of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program funding is still top of mind for states all across the country, with a focus on more local taxpayer cost for administration of the program and possible fines for not hitting target error rates. That's something that could impact state budgets funded by you, the taxpayers, to the tune of tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars per state. Now, some states have nearly double the error rate, if not more, than the law will allow. It'll be interesting to see how that continues to play out in the months ahead. But in California, Democratic State Senator Jerry McNary, he talked about the impact SNAP changes are having on Californians who are also military veterans.
SNAP provides earned benefits that directly support a veteran's health and ability to build a civilian career. Recently, federal alterations to SNAP guidelines stripped away vital protections that accounted for this complex transition. This shift placed a severe burden on newly separated service members, those experiencing homelessness, and veterans trying to feed young families. SB 1201 provides a critical course correction by authorizing California to pursue federal waivers. This legislation restores a practical safety net and advocates to rethink how we calculate financial need.
Now, Michigan State House Speaker Matt Hall, he said that Michigan needs to do more to crack down on fraud within taxpayer-subsidized nutrition assistance programs.
We had a bill yesterday, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was 2 days ago, to monitor and eventually shut off these food stamps programs where they get the food stamps money and they're spending it exclusively out of state for an extended period of time. And the honest journalists at the Michigan Capitol Confidential, they found $4 million so far. That is just largely out-of-state people that are getting Michigan food stamps, and they're spending it exclusively out-of-state. They found $4 million so far in that kind of fraud and abuse. So we had a bill to crack down on that, to monitor that. You believe they're not monitoring that, by the way?
Again, something we'll be watching closely at thecentersquare.com as more is shown of how much fraud there could be and what exactly officials at both the federal and state levels are doing about it. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. We'll be right back with more from the States.